Forza Motorsport is shaping up to be an epic entry into the Turn 10 franchise. After being given access to a preview build of the game, to say I'm excited would be putting it mildly. Forza Motorsport is back, and I can't wait to play the full game this October. The preview build I was given access to opens up with two amazing tracks from the campaign experience. First, you're thrown into Maple Valley, USA, a countryside forest location with light peeking through the trees and elevation changes to keep you on your feet. Behind the wheel of the Corvette E-Ray, you fly through this practice run quickly as the narrator takes you through the basics of driving. Visually, it does a great job of setting the standard of what you can expect from the rest of the game, and it's a lot of fun to drive the Vet. It's only a single lap, so you are onto the next one in about 1:50 seconds. Then you find yourself thrust over to Hakone, Japan behind the Cadillac V-Series R. Now with Hakone, you actually get to do 2 complete laps, and you open up with a simulated pit stop as you're jumping into lap 19 of a 20-lap endurance race. I love the layout they have for this track as an introduction. Lots of wide turns and a simple zigzag before a long straight that sends you flying across the finish line. The Cadillac handles it all with ease, but it'll be interesting to see how other vehicles do in the full build. I also love the semi-futuristic setting of Hakone. You see cherry blossom trees and Mount Fuji in the distance, and I've seen Forza fans saying this seems like a perfect evolution of the Forza 1, 3, and 4 track Fujimi Kaido. I love this section of the campaign and these 2 vehicle sections. I literally created a new account so I could go through the short track segments multiple times and get a feel for some of the more powerful cars that have been upgraded. The Cadillac V-Series R on Hakone is a must-play run. The sound design makes it feel like you're really flying past those other cars on the circuit, and as I zoomed by on my sim setup, it felt great. This build does support sim racing setups, by the way, and because it was only on console, I ordered a G923 wheel to give it a shot. Now, I'm no sim racing expert, but everything felt like it was working exactly as it did when I played GT7. But I'll be listening to others in the sim racing space, like Super GT, who I really like, to hear his take. As a novice, it feels phenomenal though, and the team at Turn 10 acknowledges that they took extra time on Forza Motorsport to build the game from the ground up and address the criticisms of Forza Motorsport 7. After this fast and furious introduction, we really get into the meat of what Forza Motorsport offers. The preview puts you behind one of 3 vehicles: the rear-wheel drive 2018 Ford Mustang GT, the all-wheel drive 2019 Subaru STI S209, or the front-wheel drive 2018 Honda Civic Type R. Obviously, this is intentional as you can easily unlock all 3 in the preview and give each drivetrain a try. Again, as a novice in the sim racing space, I have a hard time with rear-wheel drive vehicles if I can't set the differential to harness all that power in an easier to control way. If you have any tips for improving here, I'm all ears. I did a clear with the Mustang GT, and it was fine, but by far my preference is an all-wheel drive model, so I spent the most time with the Subaru. And there are 3 tracks to test out these cars on: Grand Oak, Mugello, and Kyalami. Starting with Grand Oak Raceway, the game really starts showing off the design philosophy at play. As Turn 10 puts it, you've got to go slow to go fast. Each race starts with 3 practice laps where you will gain experience points that can be used to buy upgrades for your car. Experience is gained by improving your lap time or taking on small sections of the map that offer challenges for you to improve. In an interview, Turn 10 described these challenges as a co-driver that would help you learn how you could do better on each lap. Didn't nail that last corner? Get ready to defeat it on the next lap. Dan Greenwald of Turn 10 said, "We started talking about corners as enemies, and so you can kind of see if your car is a hero and you're going out in battle on every track, every corner is an enemy, and you're gaining experience points on the way, right? So you actually are defeating these corners, gaining experience points, getting faster, and leveling up and upgrading your car." I absolutely love that it translates amazingly well into the overall gameplay experience. Every time you see that number increase or a slider go up a little bit, it's because you're racing well and you are immediately met with feedback telling you that you've improved just a little bit, and that's what sim racing is all about. Those fractions that you save off your track time because you learn how to handle a particularly difficult corner better. Grand Oak Raceway serves as your introduction to the build not bot mechanic. The philosophy there is that learning how to drive your car better gives you the ability to start unlocking gear for it, as opposed to stacking a bunch of credits and just unlocking something from the get-go. Once I completed this race, I found myself around level 4 and ready to buy my first upgrades. The first time you do this, heading into Mugello, the demo forces you to use the quick upgrade option, which will apply the optimal upgrades the game believes you should be using. In future completions, I was able to get in there and start tuning, but to even get to the intercooler section, you need to get to level 20 with your vehicle. Besides getting to dig around the menus to see what kinds of options there would be, I didn't really get to explore how integrated it really is. That's partially because you're locked to a PI rating of 600 in this build. Speaking of being able to tweak things, you can also set your AI opponents slower or faster based on your experience, and set the rules to club, sport, or expert depending on how familiar you are with the game's mechanics. I certainly wasn't hitting the podium very often using this method, but having everything set to the hardest difficulty and still managing to hit third place from the 12th starting position feels phenomenal. Full disclosure here, for assists, I do still use the full suggested line, but throttle is unassisted and shifting is manual. Like I said, I'm a novice, so a lot of this is me slowly tweaking the driving assists as I'm comfortable, but for now, this is where I'm comfortable. I'm not sure what the pros use, but something like ABS braking, I have no idea how to work without right now. Anyway, Mugello allows you to dive into those aspects of the game, but now it's time for Kyalami. On Kyalami, you're able to take your car to a PI level of 600 or Class B. So even though my Subaru is now level 40 as I'm riding this, I can't really get too deep into the tuning aspect of the game, which was an odd choice for the preview in my opinion. Really, I could only race on the 3 tracks repeatedly with the 3 different cars available for unlock. Which is smart. There's a front wheel drive, a rear wheel drive, and an all wheel drive, so you kind of get a little bit of each flavor. But even the cosmetic aspects were very limited, only allowing you to change your car's color and customize a few items like the bumpers or rims once you leveled them enough. I look forward to really diving into car customization when the full game launches. But Kyalami is a great track to help you keep learning. It's probably the hardest or most varied in terms of elevation and turns of the 3 or 5 tracks if you count the intro section. Now, I played the entire game on the expert rules with the fastest AI setting, and I wasn't sure how real this was as I was doing my best to drive clean until I hopped behind the wheel of the Honda and damaged my drivetrain. I was having a solid third place race, and being in third, I got a little bit too excited on a turn and downshifted in the first instead of second, causing the damage. The car, which had also been damaged a few times on this run already, was drastically affected, forcing me to pit and make repairs. Now, I could access the pit, but really it was limited to fuel, stock tires that never really needed a change, and the drivetrain I destroyed, of course. So in terms of depth, it seems pretty standard. Tires, fuel, and repair. But using the pit isn't something I'm super familiar with, I'll be honest. And that was the demo for the most part, an intro and 3 tracks. I couldn't really dive into the performance tuning. I couldn't really dive into the cosmetics. I could tweak some settings, but it was pretty limited in terms of what you could do. So let's talk about graphics for a second. Because getting through the entire demo experience didn't take too long, I fired up the Series S to see how things felt, and I'm thrilled to say that not only does it play great, even on a steering wheel, but it also looks great on the S. Turn 10 is targeting a 1080p 60 FPS resolution on the S, and for my testing, the preview nailed that target. There are 3 graphics modes available on the Xbox Series X and 2 on the Xbox Series S. The X has performance ray tracing, and visual. The S has performance and visual. The performance mode on the Series S targets 1080p native resolution at 60 FPS with upscaling to 4K. The visual mode targets 1440p with upscaling at 30 FPS for enhanced visuals, and it looks pretty great on the S. The Xbox Series X always targets 4K resolution with subtle things tweaked. Performance does not have ray trace reflections, for example. Quality has ray tracing on the mirror and track. Performance ray tracing mode also uses a scalable resolution that targets 4K according to Turn 10, so I imagine something like variable rate shading similar to how Gears 5 handled it is at play there. All that said, so far so good in the graphics department. Frame rate is locked across the board. Maybe I would see a frame time spike when changing perspectives, but it is solid across the board. But there are a lot of graphics that need to be touched up ahead of launch still. Now, we need to talk about multiplayer. Unfortunately, the preview didn't touch at all on the multiplayer portion of the game, so here's what we know so far. The game will have spec racing and open racing. Spec racing will be pre-balanced cars you can jump in and drive. Open racing will let you tune and bring in what you want. You'll be able to join up as a group of friends and play together. There will be a safety rating and skill rating, meaning you're more likely to end up in races with players who play the way you do. Hopefully that means you'll be more likely to wind up with clean races if you race clean. One other thing to note are full racing weekends that include an open practice, qualifying session, and an actual race. Some races will also start at a certain time, further combating griefers. So it seems like they're tackling the griefing issue from several angles. And for the variety issue, there will be 2 locked events that stick, with 2 rotating events to keep things spiced up. Now, I do question if all that will be enough to keep multiplayer fans sated, especially if the rotating events just aren't your cup of tea for a given week. And more controversially, PC players should know that the multiplayer portion of the game will be locked at 60 FPS. Why? Turn 10 says, in multiplayer, frame rates are locked to 60 FPS to ensure a consistent and competitive online racing experience for all players across a variety of PC hardware configurations and the Xbox Series X and S consoles. Now, I don't really understand why that was the solution, given the fact that A, the consoles can support 120 frames per second, and B, this means PC players are being held back by console players. So that means, like in Destiny, where an enemy does more damage at 120 FPS versus 30 FPS, an engine issue could be at play. So I'm left feeling at odds with this solution from a design standpoint, as it means Forza can never get even close to where a full sim such as iRacing is because of the consoles. So that's another question we'll need to dig into at launch. It just seems like a strange solution to me. At least to 120, because if you're dropping almost $400 on a sim racing wheel, chances are you've also got the TV to support 120 FPS. But if you're on the Series S and you can afford a steering wheel and you're playing on the sticks thinking you're gonna go up against a pro on a full sim set, like that's just not realistic. I would love to dive into that more with them, but they've made their answer pretty clear. It's because the consoles are stable at 60. So I'm left a little conflicted with that one. Overall, my impressions are positive about Forza Motorsport so far. I really love the leveling up system and how it forces you to learn how to drive as you level your car. I love how it feels on a sim racing wheel so far, and I thought the campaign introduction was a really exciting way to get players hooked.
Track is clear to the left. Get on it.
But I'm also left with a lot of questions about customization, tuning, and other avenues for teaching players how to be a better driver. One of my favorite things about GT7 was the license system, where the Polyphony team put together small challenges to teach you something about driving. Even hopping over to a game like Forza Motorsport, I remembered small things like the simple stuff, brake in a straight line and downshift in a straight line, so you keep as much momentum as possible going into a turn. And even though those GT7 challenges were on slower cars, the lessons stuck with me and felt great when you got a gold rating on them.
52, that's right where I want it. Hold the line, go. Do I got it? 16, 17. Oh, yeah!
Forza Motorsport will tell you like one time over the comms that you should coast around a corner before accelerating out of it.
Brake before the turn. Coast through it, then accelerate as you exit.
but I don't know if that teaching style will stick as well as the lessons GT7 gave. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just two different methods of teaching. And if this game is targeting the sim racing market, there has to be some sort of onboarding process for players like myself who are still novice. Forza Motorsport may eventually teach beginners like myself the ropes, but besides the GT7's license style, I don't know of any game that takes the time to teach you the ins and outs of racings like that. If there is one, let me know about it in the comments so I can try it out. But to recap, I love the gamification of leveling your car and the rewards for defeating each corner. I have to wonder if people trying to break into sim racing will take away the lessons they need with the methods on display so far. The overall philosophy laid out by Turn 10 during the interviews was all about helping the player fall in love with cars and building Forza Motorsport to be a platform. They promise it'll be more agile and be able to be updated more quickly, meaning more tracks, experiences, cars, and more. Like Dan said, as a teacher, you've got to go slow to go fast. So if this is the Turn 10 team starting out slow, overall, they've set themselves up with a platform that'll teach them a lot about how to improve, and a platform that's looking incredibly promising so far. I cannot wait to play more. What are you thinking about Forza Motorsport? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much to the members for supporting this channel. I really do appreciate it. If you want to become a member, click that button on the main page. I'm Destin, and I'm going to get out of here. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.